right, y'all. You know what it is. It's time to get to it. It's time for that boom bap breakfast right here, right now. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. This is the Remix Morning Show. Now let me introduce you to your host. We have no other than Dr. Jared Ball and Burn Down
Yes.
I
Get me
love
pumped
it.
up, Ear Doctor. Get me pumped up, Ear out
You
here,
know what I'm
Doctor.
saying?
Thank you. Woo!
Hey, let's get it.
Let's
Get it.
do it.
I like that. Came in strong. Everybody got the echo this morning. I love it.
It was enough echo to go around. Sometimes the
No
echo
complaint.
gets overly distributed, but we had the right amount of echo today. Yes.
Yes, no doubt.
Just letting everybody know my coffee takes extra good this morning.
All right.
Okay. Nice and
Yes,
once again.
radicalized. That
Yes,
radicalized
indeed.
coffee. Let's go. I'm with it.
How you all doing this morning? And Ear Doctor, what is that background? I meant to ask that yesterday.
Hey, I'm above the clouds, man. I'm above
okay.
the clouds. I'm just chilling, looking down. Yo, but straight up, I'm feeling good. I ain't gonna front. I've been in the grocery store almost all week. Big up to all my parents out there on spring break that know what I'm talking about because these kids eat like there's no tomorrow. I will add professional chef to my name after next week because I've been cooking,
Right.
cooking.
Wonderful. We love to see a man laboring in the kitchen, man. That's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things there, Ear Doctor. Tell me some more how you be cooking it in the store. That shit sounds sexy. Come on.
There you go. I'll let Jared take over. I know he knows something about what's going on right now.
No, all I was gonna say is it depends, on the man and what he's doing in the kitchen. Some men you don't want anywhere near that joint. But I will say my daughter's about to go on spring break, speaking of kitchen and who's in the kitchen doing what, and we are going to have a bake-off. A family bake-off.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I have been talking much trash because my whole thing, because they're like, well, you don't cook. And I'm like, but that's by choice, not by inability. I'm about to bake somebody. I'm about to bake them out the house.
Oh, you choose to let your wife do all the cooking. You noted.
It is. I actually make no decisions like that in the house. So it is by her decision that I don't cook and that I'm not even allowed to pour a plate. But no, everything is decided by
so when you go to cookouts, Jared, your wife gets your plate for you?
Oh yeah. Especially and this is especially when it's at the Panamanian spots. Because they do have an old school culture that dominates in those spaces.
When you say old school, do you mean patriarchal culture?
Patriarchal.
Okay.
And if she is seen letting me get my own plate, it will be the women that check her. The older women will check her.
That's how it was back in the church days. For real.
So, and I have to admit, I'm very uncomfortable with that. Like I'm like, let me, but it's.
I can understand. I can understand going along with the tradition, so you don't have to hear it from the elders. You don't want to hear the elders' mouth. Why you?
Oh, there's fear involved, Kim.
Oh, I bet
it's straight fear. Like it's I get real humble. But that is reality. I mean, it is how it goes. And I've not put up much of a resistance, but in general, in terms of the house, the roles are delineated by my wife, and I have my assignments. And when I'm allowed to be in the kitchen, I will go in the kitchen. And when I'm not, I don't.
Kim, are you a plate fixer?
Hell no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Especially if I was cooking, shit. You can get your happy ass up there and fix your own plate. That's why I'm not married, though.
Damn,
you understand? Like there are certain, hey, a lot of men look for women who will adhere to those traditional patriarchal roles, and women who do not, are problematic. and so
actually, yeah.
Spinsters we remain.
So you're not the
Nah,
Oh, I can cook my ass off, shorty.
okay.
I can cook. Oh, shorty, I throw down. Yes, sir. I do
All
my
right.
thing. I do my thing in the kitchen. But am I plate fixing? No. Do I have to clean up the kitchen and fix your plate and cook? Come
Nah.
on. Something's got to give here.
So
Something has got to
I
give.
think that's the thing. I feel like, you know, in this society, it looks like if the man is going out as, say, the hunter, go gets the money, how's been in society, go gets the money, comes back. He doesn't want to do anything. He wants to come home, sit down, eat, while the person that's taking care of the house takes care of house duties.
oh my.
Well,
No.
here-
Oh Lord.
go ahead, Jared.
All I'm saying is, so I don't experience or want any of that. And in fact, to Shirley's point, I do not feel comfortable with this. I was raised by an extreme communist feminist, who didn't play that. Like, so it was get your own plate, do your own dishes, do mine while you're at it, and and all of that. So this has been, this was an adjustment that I had to make. And in our household, I am not the breadwinner. So I am not at least the dominant breadwinner. So everything, all the power rests outside of this little room I'm allowed to inhabit. And
a wonderful system, something that's I can get behind some shit like that.
I have always loved that. I was like, especially where I knew my career was going to go, I have always been happy to have my wife make more money. I knew I was never going to be, chasing down the money like that, and don't want it. I would rather earn less and do less than have more and do more. That's always been my ethic. I'm not here to work hard and bust my butt. And I see a lot of people with nice cars and nice houses, and they don't have time or the stress levels to enjoy them. And so I'd rather have less and do less. But, so anyway, so yeah, when you talk about the breadwinner and the man come home and expect somebody to I don't relate to any of that.
So should she expect you to have stuff ready when she get home?
There are, I think it's not, I think it's honestly, I think it's a nice and smooth sort of the best part of how I've always understood the yin and the yang. I mean, it just flows. When something needs to be done, it gets done.
That's the key.
If I'm here and something needs to happen, it happens. There's none of this, well, that's her job, so unless it's managing the finances. That is I do have to wait for boss to get back for that. But in general, that's it. That's how it works. So yeah, I mean, it's that's basically it. Whatever needs to happen happens. There are no gender specific roles. There are hierarchical roles.
Yeah.
There is a hierarchy.
My friends who are still married, been married 10 years or better, those are the people that are still married. Now, my friends who got married and who are divorced, it usually was a result of unequal distribution of domestic labor. And that became a problem. You know what I'm saying? These women will have full-time jobs, go out and work themselves, and then have to come home, clean the house, cook the food, clean the kitchen, take care of the kids, help the kids with their homework. While the father, I don't know what the fuck niggas do. Do they take out the trash, cut the grass? I don't know I don't know what husbands do, but the deadbeat husbands would just be comfortable with their wife working full time and then performing the majority of the domestic duties. And my girlfriends was like, nigga, not for life, nigga. We're gonna do this forever? No, I do not think so. Pick up your own drawers, sir, in your own apartment, because you getting the fuck up out of here.
Hey, real quick, Ricky Ryan, you ain't lying about your girl Paula Patton making them wings, boy. I seen that video. The woman did not clean the chicken. She cleaned it with cold water. She put it in grease and then seasoned the chicken while it was in the grease, not before, and then put it in the flour. Put it in the flour from cold water into the grease.
Now, I was gonna make some assumptions about Paula Patton because I think she's biracial, so I'd be curious as to which
Mm-hmm.
one of her parents was white.
Mm-hmm.
But then, even when I was going down that line of thinking, the Amish market. Are y'all familiar with the Amish?
Mm-hmm.
The Amish people have set up shop various places in Maryland, Pennsylvania, whatever. Them white folks can fry up some fucking chicken, man. Like, so I can't even chalk it up to Paula being half white that she don't know how to do. She don't know what to do with the birds. Some white folks are quite proficient at frying chicken. So I don't know.
I think that in general is a good stereotype, but there are exceptions. There are exceptions. The Amish might be an exception, and because that was the first thought I had, that was her the white parents influence on that one, because that was how I heard it. In fact, my wife came in the room and said, "Did you see that Paula Patton video?" And she did the same thing Ear Doctor did. She did this all out of order with the cold water. This is that. It was like, what is happening? It's like a world collapse.
See why Robin Thicke left. Now I'm just playing. Anyway, I catch you on the break.
And why is chicken such a cultural flashpoint, Gerard? Especially the preparation of chicken, because there are some folks who don't believe in washing chicken, right? Like they say, I see it all the time on the news, like, oh, you shouldn't wash your chicken because it spreads E. coli around the kitchen. Are y'all just out here cooking and eating dirty chicken? I don't follow the logic.
Wait a minute. The logic, I lost the logic in that. So you're saying you have E. coli on your chicken and you're fine to eat it. And it's just and somehow washing off the E. coli in the sink, it makes it acceptable to you. And then you're only worried about it being distributed in the rest of the sink area. Like, what about the starting point of the E. coli with the chicken?
Well, yes, but I'm a big believer in brining my chicken in salt water. I know our Caribbean and African folks will put lime juice and salt on the chicken to clean the chicken. And I don't know. I think there's a reason why African people clean chicken and some non-African people do not. Now I don't know how the Asians prepare their chicken. They're also quite proficient. Shout out to Koreans. Yeah, the Koreans know what they're doing with fried chicken as well. But no, Black folks is going to clean the chicken, period. Like there's not even a question about that.
My response was just to go vegan. So I'm out the conversation altogether.
That's nice.
But apparently the chat is divided. Even our chat is divided.
Oh,
see?
really?
Erica's in the building. The heat kills it.
I guess, but okay.
Anyway, I mean, it's rough out here. But one thing where we are not divided,
what's that?
Though he just left, is the role of the important role that the Ear Doctor plays, our audiologist.
Is he coming back?
He's coming right back, and he's back
like
on stage,
like he
never left.
Yo. So this break, I am going to go back in time. I'm going to go back in time and put y'all on, spotlight on a certain person that's one of the first.
Of what?
Right. Let's get to it. Right here, Remix Morning Show.
Remix Morning Show.
Remix.
Welcome out. It's the Remix Morning Show. Are y'all ready to go? Yeah, let's get it. Right here, make sure y'all hit that like button. In case y'all didn't know, hit that subscribe button for all those people who haven't subscribed yet, and notification bell so y'all can know all the shows and stuff that's coming here to Black Power Media. That's right. All right, so boom. And also go to patreon.com, drop some change in the bucket, check out the whole blackpowermedia.org website. We got some things up there, some fresh gear, so peep all that. All right, so who am I going to talk about today? Y'all wondering? I talk about music, I talk about artists, I talk about actors and actresses and all that. So today, I was like, you know what? One of my favorite childhood things was wrestling. Now, I want to tell about one of the first Black women wrestlers that got the belt. Ethel Johnson. That's right. Ethel Johnson. Ethel Blanche. I always like that name. Blanche Harrison, but in the ring known as Ethel Johnson. She debuted at age 16. She became the first African-American women's champion. She was a fan favorite, billed as the biggest attraction to hit girl wrestling since girl wrestling began. She started training with her sister, Babs Wingo, the first African American woman to integrate professional wrestling in 1950s. She signed with the promoter Billy Wolf. Their younger sister, now was 3 of them. It was Babs, Marva, and Ethel. They was all wrestling. That's wild, right? A whole family sisters that's wrestling. Back in 1952, Johnson, along with his sisters, worked 3 matches, including a tag team match in the main event at Baltimore, Maryland, which drew the highest record crowd of 3,611 fans. And by 1954, Johnson and Wingo received top billing alongside Gorgeous George. That's right, Gorgeous George, after drawing 9,000 fans in Kansas City, Missouri. So while she was touring Latin America, she also was down there and changed her name to Rita Valdez. That's right. So she even freaked it like she was in Latin America. She was doing her thing. So Johnson was known for being athletic and her standing drop kick. That's right. She was one of the first to do the standing drop kick and also the flying head scissors. Now, if you don't know about wrestling, man, WWE, she did it. And once again, she lived all the way till she had a heart attack. She's straight out of Decatur, Georgia. That's right. Straight out of the deck. So big up to her. Johnson stage name, blah, blah, blah. She did a thing in Madison Square Garden. She died of heart disease September 14th, 2018 in Columbus, Ohio. She was 83 years old. So big up to Ethel. In case you haven't ever seen anything like it, check this out right here. I'm going to give you a little taste of the bass in your face. Big up to Ethel. Word. I love how fake wrestling is. Now let's get back to the morning show. You know how we do. Yeah.
Appreciate
Right
that,
on.
Ear Doctor. Ear Doctor, you're always telling us about some folks that I either have never heard of or didn't know anything about their history or the significance of, their professional role at the time. So yeah, shout out to Ethel. That's what's happening.
You gotta keep your ear on the street. Yeah, Doctor.
Yeah.
Hey,
You
I
do.
will say this. I know the wrestling was fake or is fake as hell, but it does require talent and skill and athleticism to pull it off. So big up to her and
Man,
for that.
you know how you remember how big wrestling was in the 80s? I mean, a whole surge of, right now they got the Young Rock series that's showing his dad being Rocky Johnson, and Tony Atlas. Now they was the first black tag team champions, and then how it went from them to Hulk Hogan era to Rock Johnson. How, man, wrestling was so big. And I was like, yo, the sisters did some things too in wrestling. And now
doing currently some things. There are some black women wrestlers right now who
actually you got 2 tag team black sisters right now, Trinity and some other sisters. Yes. Don't get me started.
So I remember being in middle school when I read an article about Sergeant Slaughter coming out, and at the time, from how I remember it, was the first time in a major way publicly exposing the fakery of wrestling, and I immediately was turned off. So I never really got into it. I never watched it. Still am not into it. But I will say I got into a series on one of these platforms. I don't even remember which one it is, called Dark Side of the Ring. Where even though I don't care about wrestling and never watched, I am fascinated by a lot of the stories about what has gone on outside of the ring and behind the scenes. And it is some shady, violent fuckery.
Vince McMahon is a
So
whole
yeah.
cartel operator.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
like Vince
Absolutely.
McMahon,
Absolutely.
gangster, steroid
Um,
gangster.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
The
I
razor
was
blade,
in
cutting the
love.
foreheads, all that stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was in love with it, especially the one person I really did not like was Virgil. I
Of
don't know if you ever,
course, simp
Virgil.
ass.
You know who Virgil was?
He was Ted DiBiase's little fuck boy.
Oh wow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have said that different.
No, you was right. You was right. He was like the personal butler slave to Ted DiBiase.
$1 million
Oh
man.
God.
See, Ear Doctor, you and I were watching wrestling at the same time because it was Ted DiBiase, Ravishing Rick Rude, The
Yes.
Ultimate Warrior, Randy Macho Man Savage.
Oh yeah,
And of course, my nigga, who was my nigga? Oh, Jimmy Superfly Snooker.
Jimmy Superfly Snooker off
Come
the
on.
top ropes like that, baby.
You should check out that series. They did an episode on Snooker. They did an episode on Ultimate Warrior. And these folks have had. I mean, Ultimate Warrior went to a right wing conservative Trumpish type stuff.
Shit, really?
But oh yeah. He got
Damn.
real conservative real quick apparently. But these cats have like Snooker had like a real wild. I don't remember the details. It was just wild lives. I mean, they just were doing. It was just wild out there. And they've profiled some of the women wrestlers as well. I don't remember any black women being profiled yet, but they've anyway, I mean, it was fascinating. You would appreciate it, especially as fans of the sport. You would appreciate it. It actually made me appreciate the sport more for what they are doing and how they put up with stuff and what they physically go through. But anyway, yes, sorry.
Well, hey, that's my break for the day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Appreciate you here, Doctor.
Funny. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, come through, Pookie Wood.
wow.
We was watching WWF at the same time. Yes, indeed. Who came out there with the snake? Who used to? Oh, Jake the Snake. Duh.
Jake the Snake. I remember him because they were real. I mean, they hit the pop culture at the time. I mean, they had Hulk Hogan cartoons and action figures, and
then when WrestleMania, they started to introduce WrestleMania as a pay-per-view event, and it was a national kind of event. I mean, I remember WrestleMania having, in some circles, the same sort of import at the time as like Mike Tyson fights. You know what I'm saying? People would gather up in that one house to watch this pay-per-view WrestleMania. And I think this was like when Hogan first wrestled Andre the Giant. This is when Hogan first body slam Andre the Giant. I think that was during WrestleMania. Yeah, man. I was.
They did a profile on Andre too.
Oh yeah.
And I had no idea what he was suffering through. I mean, his physical pain, the alcoholism. I mean, he was going through it. Real just fascinating stuff. But yeah. It was big. I mean, it was no doubt. And then, of course, Hulk Hogan was in Rocky 2 or 3 or 4, one of them.
Yes.
One of them joints. Listen, before we start slapping up this map, I just want to let everybody know in the 9 o'clock hour, I'm not entirely sure if we have Warrior Class today, but we might have Warrior Class. But we definitely have Netfer Freeman coming on to talk about his recent article in Black Agenda Report. And then for those BPM remixer lovers of Netfa, you're going to get an extra dose of him because at 11, he's going to come back and we're going to do a special brief media analysis related to his article about defund the police. In other words, what is the narrative and how is the dominant narrative against defund being pushed in the press? So we're going to do that at 11 o'clock. And then also I did post a couple of older interviews with some legendary folks, including Tata Fukuyao, or a presentation about Tata Fukuyao from Dr. Mark Bolden, a classic legend in Black psychology. And then I posted some audio from another recently passed couple of legends, actually, Bob Rhodes and Conrad Worrell. And it's fascinating. So please check that stuff out because Bob Rhodes opens up in a discussion that I was able to tape actually while we were waiting in an office space, and he just started going in, and I was like, this is some legendary stuff. I got to turn on the recorder, and I'm glad I did. So please check that out. When he goes in, he's off the break, he's talking about Du Bois and Garvey and Pan-Africanism versus African nationalism and political economy. Just one of the brilliant legends of Black studies that doesn't get the attention he deserves. So please check that stuff out, everybody, when you get a chance. So that's that. Just a couple quick promos, and of course, get yourself some merch. And that said, let's slap this map and get into some news. All right. Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media, and getting into some news here. Kim, you got something you wanted to get us started with, I believe, if I'm saying this correctly, and it looks just wonderful.
Thank you, Chair. I worked very hard. I popped Twitter open for 5 whole minutes, and then so guys, as we are all, I hope, still continually celebrating the amazing unionization victory of the Amazon Labor Union out of Staten Island. The news, according to Christian Smalls, the president of the ALU, says that he's been contacted by over 50 Amazon locations worldwide, not just here in the US, that wants to begin to organize their workers. Well, let's see, what year is this? 2022. Yes, this would be an election year. This would be an election year. The Democrats are looking a little shaky. So Joe Biden, in typical Democrat fashion, decided to hop on the coattails of this Amazon victory. And niggas was like, nigga, where was you when all this organization was coming about? But this is a clip that has been circulating social media, and people are frowning their face up to hear Joe Biden say this.
That's what unions are about, in my view, about providing dignity and respect for people who bust their neck. That's why I created the White House Task Force on Worker Organization and Empowerment, to make sure the choice to join a union belongs to workers alone. And by the way, Amazon, here we come. Watch.
Wow.
Meanwhile, all the Amazon workers in Bessemer in Staten Island are like, nigga, who is we? Who is we? Where were the Democrats when all this organizing was taking place? Now, there's been a little, let's say some tiny shots fired at the squad, specifically Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Some people, were asking her on Twitter, like, where was you? How come you wasn't out here? And her reply was, well, that's not my district. Right? Which I thought was a very strange response for her, because let me just be clear. I'm not an AOC fan, no stan, no none of that shit. But I have seen her appear at worker strikes, not just Amazon. But for example, I remember when India Walton was running for the mayor of Buffalo, and AOC went up there to support her. There was some nurses and hospital workers. I want to say Mercy Hospital, maybe in Erie County, New York, but I can't be specific. But anyway, I know she has showed up at worker actions. So for her to kind of just be like, well, that's not my problem, was sort of an interesting response from AOC. But Gerard, what is your take that the by and large, Democrats have been quiet while these worker actions have been happening? There have been some, I guess, word service from the White House, like Jen Psaki would mention, for example, I think it was the UAW workers who had gone on strike maybe a couple of months ago, and she had mentioned it and said that, that the White House stands with unions. But this Amazon reference, that to me is telling. Is telling from Joe Biden. What do you make of Joe Biden celebrating this Amazon victory and then laying the gauntlet down? Amazon, we're coming for you.
So my initial reactions, because I had not seen that until just now, to be frank about it. So my first reactions are, one, politicians often will do this, attach themselves to other people's efforts and victories and try to ride a wave that they see cresting. Then my other thought was, here we go again. The Democratic Party is going to once again present itself as a viable option. It's going to present itself as a working people's option. It's going to use this and some false attachment to reclaim itself as the working people's party. Biden himself has always been trying to promote himself as the working man's politician. So I'm sure he'll do that. And then the last thought I had was, especially given that other video I saw that was circulating recently about where while Obama is glad handing everybody with Kamala Harris, Biden is standing behind him and nobody's paying him any attention. And he even puts his hand on Obama's shoulder and gets no response. And he's just kind of standing in the background, aimlessly walking around. So so I was thinking about that as I was watching this, and I'm wondering, did he just go off script? Does he even know what he's really saying? Does he have backing of his advisors? And what will this look like in a few months? You know, it's is because anyway, if you wanted to do, you know, because as many people have been saying, if you wanted to really present yourself as the working people's party, you could just start doing all of the things that could easily be done by your party with you in the presidency to help working people and push unions. And the last thought I did have just now is that Obama famously started his first campaign promising to support now I can't even remember the acronym, but the movement, or there was a bill up, or there was some effort to try to get more protection for unionized working, for the development of unions in workplaces, and he never followed up with that. He made a promise initially, and then during his 8 years, never. FCA, thank you very much. That's right. The Employee Free Choice Act. That's right. And he, you know, he said in 2008, I'm going to support this. We're going to da 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 da, and then he never said it again for 8 years. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. This is going to be just another version of. But anyway, those are my initial thoughts. And but I really hate the rebranding thing. I think most, like, how dare you?
Seriously.
You know.
And the fact that Amazon has been complicit in union busting, dirty tricks, dirty tactics, so much so that they were reprimanded by the NLRB. But to the extent that, I mean, what the fuck does a reprimand from the National Labor Relations Board mean to Amazon? You know what I'm saying? Like, Amazon probably threw that shit in the trash, like, whatever. Next, we will continue on as scheduled. But I don't know. I just want to be sure. And I'm preaching to the choir here for BPM audience, but I don't want regular people to fall for this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, Joe Biden supports Amazon workers. No. If he did, he would have been supporting them in advance of the election, right? In advance of the unionization election. Like, he would have came out with this stance prior to the folks voting up there in Staten Island. So don't fall for it.
I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, because when he was running, he already knew all of these working people have no other choice, because the whole campaign was, I'm not Trump. Now that he's elected and he sees the support for the party dwindling, and they're worried about midterms and they want to come back again with the branding. And that's, to your point, exactly my main concern, that this is another way of getting people who might have been thinking of not supporting in the midterm, or not, you know, supporting at all, to bring them right back in, because they're not doing the student loan relief. They're not doing defund, as we're going to be talking about next hour with NETFA. They're not stopping wars and aggression. They're not doing all the things that people really need. So here's a little bit of symbolism that they can attach themselves to, having watched all of these people already do the real work, take all the risks, suffer all the thises and that's. Now he can come up there at Amazon. Here we come. I mean, okay. I'm sure Jeff Bezos had a good laugh.
I'm sure he did, right? What is the danger of co-optation here? Like, I'm concerned, for example, that Chris Smalls is going to get an invite to the White House to come join the White House Labor Union Task Force, as whatever the fuck Joe Biden just made up right there on the spot about his new task force that supports people creating unions. Like we've seen this before, you know what I'm saying? I don't want Chris to get caught up. Or would he be wise to accept an invitation from the White House? Like is this the smart play to pony up with the power brokers, or to stay the course independently? Because this movement, the Amazon labor union movement, was Black folks, working folks only. Like, wasn't no DSA, wasn't no DNC. Like, niggas didn't help them. They did that shit on their own. So should they continue to stay that independent course and continue to build the coalition, or come on over there and see what the Democrats talking about?
Honestly, I would like them, of course, to stay independent and become more militant and risk taking. But that's easy for me to say. So ultimately, what I would like for Chris and the union to do is what they, as a collective, decide is best for them going forward. If I or others disagree with that later on, we can, assess. But I feel a kind of way about not being close enough, not being inside, and not taking any risks myself at this moment to put any of that on them. But other than to say, and I've interviewed him twice. I don't claim to know him, but I don't get any impression that while Chris is, I don't think, as politically radical as some of us might want, but I don't get any impression that he's up for the hustle and the okie doke either. So my biggest concern would be that whatever he and the leadership do is the actual will of the people in the union. And then we can assess it later if that will was right or wrong, and then, look for ways to support and strengthen them. But anyway, that's my initial, thought to the question. The effort to co-opt them is already begun, I'm sure. So, hopefully they can stay strong. I've seen people put in the chat, like, don't let them become AFSCME and other kinds of union and stuff like that. And I agree. And that was my other concern. Like, what other pressures are they going to suffer from unions and whatnot? Anyway, yeah. So, but
is Joe Biden merely even saying, Amazon, we're coming for you? Is that the extent to which we can expect Biden to be pushed to the left? Is that is that the extent of pushing him to the left for him to say, Amazon, we're coming for you? I mean, we're almost halfway through the Biden first term, and I have seen no indications that Joe Biden is being pushed to the left on anything.
And I'm sure that. But what I think some meant, whether they admitted or are conscious of it or not, what some meant when they say push him left is simply what we got already, that he isn't doing a sort of Trump presentation of bashing the unions and calling them, traitors. And, in other words, he's coming out and offering some rhetoric, right on, that is, supportive. And I think for many, like the latte sipping liberals, I think people were calling them, like, that's what they wanted. That's all that they wanted in replacing Trump, somebody who wasn't going to say the nasty things publicly, but isn't going to really challenge anything. That's, but that's why, what I think they should be doing in terms of the pushing left is among other things, is encouraging him to go along with, or to go to more to his word or the faux promises or whatever before. If you want to push left and you want to be seen as actually supporting working people, really support the unionization, and then really go through with not just extending the pause on federal student loans, but canceling them. Yes, exactly.
That shit. At least do something. Do what he initially promised. Like, I mean, a $10,000 cancellation is better than a zero cancellation, even though it should be $50,000. It should be all student loan debt should be canceled. It shouldn't even be a number on it. But I don't see what Biden runs on. Like, I guess he's just going to run on not being the the Republican nominee, because all of his campaign promises, none of them were kept. I think the Democrats are about to get mollywopped come this midterm. I'm not sure how many seats they are at risk of losing, but I think that their chances of maintaining the majority that they have right now in the House is at least going to be shaved off some, if not outright erased. So, we're going to have another instance where we have a Democrat in the White House with Republican controlled Congress. And if you think nothing is getting done now, if you think nothing is getting done now, nothing will continue to get done except for the will of, big pharma and, military industrial complex. The usual players will get their shit passed, but the rest of us, nope.
I'm noticing. I didn't read this article closely. Again, shout out to Erica for getting the stories for us. But I'm looking at this and I'm wondering if this is going to be part of the hustle in the language that because the payments, while they're being postponed, still the time still counts towards the student forgiveness eligibility after 10 years. And they're arguing here, according to some recent analysis from the Nonprofit Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, found that the pause on interest and payments from March 2020 through the previously scheduled end date of May 2022 will result in debt relief equivalent to an average of $5,500 per borrower. So as I read that, are they going to then, is this going to be the same way? Are they going to do this and twist this into him living up to his promise to get us close to that 10,000 release?
Nah, Joe. Nah.
Is that
Joe.
how they're going to do this?
Nah, Joe. That's not going to work. Because I don't even know if that's true, Jared. Because shit, the little I know about economics, interest compounds, does it not? So even if the shit is paused, isn't that debt still accumulating that same amount of interest?
Again, I didn't read this closely enough. I have not read the study that they're linking to, so I don't know how. Yes, I think what you're saying is correct, but I don't know what they're doing in their funny math and formula creations, and how they're going to, or how they're going to interpret the conclusions. And I feel like, because isn't that kind of like how they did with the, we promised you 1,400 or 2,000 in debt relief, but we gave you 600 last year, and what else? 1,400 this year, some nonsense like that.
Yes.
So I feel like he's going to hustle us. And for me, even an outright 10 grand relief package, like you said, would be better than nothing, but it's not going to make a dent in mine. It would be insignificant for somebody with my insurmountable debt.
That would
so
change
I'm like
maybe 5 years worth of payments, perhaps. I don't even know. Like how many?
No,
years
it would
for 10,000 take off.
No, for me, where I'm at, it would be like 5 minutes of payments.
Oh,
like
Jesus.
10,000 is literally insignificant. For me, it's actually insignificant. Like you could add 10, you could take away 10. It's not gonna make a difference at this point. I'm so upside down, and on this one, it don't make no difference. But so yeah, I'm just like, anyway. I feel like we're about to get hustled with some funny math, Kim. That's all I'm saying. I just feel like that's all.
Funny math hustle began when Joe Biden was down in Georgia trying to get Warnock and who was the other Bama? They're trying to get them Bamas in the Senate.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
yeah,
funny
what was
math
the other
hustle
one? I can't
funny
remember
thing.
the other one now. Yeah. Was that Bowman? Is that no?
I don't
Was
know
that
the
Bowman?
Bama's name.
I
I
can't
just
even
know
remember now.
I just
I
know
don't remember.
Warnock. I just know Warnock. But at the same time, but that's what they were selling specifically, $2,000 federal stimulus payments. And then when Biden got elected, did we say 2,000? We meant 1,400. It's like, no, I should actually tweet Joe Biden today to remind him that he still owes me $600. Like, you still owe me $600, my nigga. Like, don't think that I forgot. I ain't never forgot about motherfucker owing me money, Slim. Like, and you one of them, Joe Biden. So I still expect my $600 to be ran, Slim. Run me my money.
You know what? That's a good point, and that's a lot of bread. So I remember people that owe me 25 cents from 1982.
Now that has compounded with interest. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? You had me short on my comic book money. You know what I mean? Anyway. But speaking of funny math, one of the chieftains of funny math making, Wells Fargo, has apparently unveiled a credit card that will reward rent payments. So if I understand this, and I only read just a little bit of this, if the people who are one of the primary what's the word I'm looking for? Primary leading thieves who did the
Oh.
the predatory lending, right?
Yes.
And then came back and sponsored all what we used to call the Great Negro Bowls, hosted by Tavis Smiley, on Black leadership, that were hosted by
Well,
sponsored
Ed
by Wells
Gordon.
Fargo, and all of that. So they're going to come back now and say, now that we messed up your whole whole housing and all of that and home ownership, since you're now a renter, we're going to give you a credit card that allows you to pay your landlord with credit card. Wells Fargo says its new credit card is the first to let the nation's 109 million renters pay their landlords each month while earning points and miles. Now, I wonder if we keep looking, if there is a relationship between Wells Fargo and BlackRock, who is buying up all the housing and turning it into rental properties, and saying, we got to make sure we get some money with some interest, even as we know people cannot afford housing because we don't pay them right, et cetera, and so forth and so on. But we got to make sure that they can pay. So when they run out of money, we'll give them a credit card, because that's how this country does since the 70s, right? We don't pay workers. We don't increase their salaries. We just increase their ability to accumulate debt to keep paying for the things that they can no longer afford with the salaries we don't pay them. So this just seems like a perfect situation that can, end no way but good.
There's a lot of things about the housing crisis that are really scary to me. For one, for renters, it's bad. Like it is extremely bad, especially if you live in a big city. You live in New York, you live in DC, you live in Philly, you live in LA, Chicago. Like the rents that I'm seeing people being charged, especially now since COVID is over, right? Like any sort of rent grace or breaks on the rent that might have been offered pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, them shits is going away. And people who may have been paying something even outlandish, like $2,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, are now being charged north of $3,000 a month for housing. And this, it was already unsustainable to begin with. But now it's going to put people even in more of a dire situation. And I'm afraid that we're going to just see more people experiencing homelessness coming up real soon, and maybe not in the way where we are accustomed to with people, living on the streets, but it's going to be more people sleeping in their cars, more people couch surfing, more people crowded into, perhaps multi-generational living situations. And we're still in a pandemic, by the way. I'd just like to remind everybody that COVID is not over. I know the US government is telling y'all that COVID is over. COVID is not over. And anyway, there's some COVID news I'd like for us to get into a little bit later. But I don't know, Jared. So that's renters. And then people who are aspiring to purchase homes. That is ridiculous. And I think that we're probably headed towards some sort of real estate housing bubble, as they're already starting to, float that out there for people to prepare themselves for, where people right now are paying. All right, I'm gonna keep it a buck. So I bought my house in 2013. I paid $225,000 for my house. Houses in my neighborhood now are selling on the low end for $350, on the high end like $470, $500. And I'm like, yo, like I don't know whether or not to be happy or terrified, because you can sell your house right now and make a little come up, but where the fuck are you going? You know what I'm saying? Like if you make $200,000 off the sale of your house, the next house that you can afford to buy is $500,000. So you're still going to have a $300,000 mortgage. Like either way, you are fucked out here. And if you are a new homeowner trying to get a house, I'm not an expert, so please don't take my advice as professional. I would say don't do it, Slim, because I feel like the housing bubble is about to be upon us. So whatever exorbitant amount you may consider paying for a house, chances are in 2 to 5 years, your house is not going to be worth that much, because the same sort of housing crisis is upon us, right? So fuck Wells Fargo in general for their participation in the exploitation of not only Black renters but Black homeowners as well. And I wouldn't sign up for no Wells Fargo rent credit card. That sounds like a terrible, terrible idea.
So you remind me of a story that I didn't prepare to bring this morning, but I should bring, soon. And it may turn out that folks see me in a Dave Chappelle style video at a local city council being misunderstood, because they are literally not far from where we live, looking to do what I think is a very similar hustle under the guise of affordable housing and housing for the disabled. They are pushing in a bunch of high-end apartments, condos or whatever, and try to, and have another $1 billion, what do they call, land developer or whatever, come in and create a whole new little, the slick little apartments over the stores and the fancy eateries and all this other kind of stuff. And because 10 of the 278 units are designed specifically to help, according to one article I just read, people with autism, it's being promoted as something that is pro-disabled, public housing and affordable housing and all this other kind of stuff. And it's so, I mean, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, I mean, it might be that I'm caught on somebody's YouTube talking about, yo, I don't have $60 million worth of business. I think Chappelle said he was able to hold over the community. I got $20 that I spend routinely at the local supermarket that I will take.
I mean, Jared, shit, you raised in Columbia, you see what affordable housing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you see how limited the affordable housing is, and the ways that the affordable housing is segregated, away from the other, homeowners in a class or whatever. Like, when I see rich cities like DC, like New York, claim that they have provided affordable housing, and the evidence is all to the contrary. Like, no, like, your little 10 units out of 200 plus units is insufficient. That is making a dent. Like, I'm sure there's already a dearth of accessible housing for people who are disabled, especially those who have mobility issues or who are wheelchair users. I can only imagine how quickly those handful of units got snapped up, right? And that's not doing anything to address the problem. That's only making accommodations for a very small number of people, but leaving the majority of the folks out. And no,
and they're getting a lot of the attention. I mean, in the local paper, it is the I don't know if this is the right phrase, but this the not pro autism in that they like autism, but the autism advocates, defend, support groups are promoting this and are saying this is going to be great for my son or for our, and it's going to be very helpful. And I'm sure that that's true. And of course, nobody wants to be seen as standing up against anyone with a disability getting the benefit that they need. But to promote this as, again, being an affordable housing situation or something that's going to benefit even a large number of people suffering from whatever malady is again disingenuous. And then the Howard County is down to 10% or less in affordable housing. And as a kid, your neighborhood feels bigger. But when I went back even just recently and looked at my own neighborhood, it's only one street. It's one street of affordable housing in the area. It's like, and then it's surrounded by everything else. And it's like, wow, man, it's anyway. So, look, we'll stay vigilant on it and keep these stories coming and keep our attention focused on this and other related stories and come back to it in future remixes and other shows throughout the platform and elsewhere. But speaking of being vigilant, we got somebody who stays vigilant on them beats coming back to the stage.
You know what I would do if I had $1 million? Down here in the South, it's a lot. I'm probably all around, but it's a lot of malls that's going out of business. I would purchase a mall, make the Macy's that's used to be a Macy's or whatever, the big department store, a grocery store. Top of the grocery store, I would put a farm, and then I would turn all the other stores into affordable housing.
That's right.
It's so many malls out there that this could be done.
Ear Doctor, not only the malls, But just think about all the office space in every single downtown across the country, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why they are so pressed to get people back in the office. Because how else can you justify this expensive ass real estate in the middle of a city if people are not physically in those offices? Like, oh, that could be affordable housing. Make everybody work from home that is able to work from home, and get rid of those fucking offices, man. Make that housing.
That's right.
That's right. I want to go to Ear Doctor Village. That's right. And you know, it's a reminder, by the way, that the mall is originally the idea of socialists. It was put all the commerce in one area so the rest of the community can be space and non-cluttered with commercialism, and at least that was the original idea behind it. So yeah, we want Ear Doctor Village.
Come on, y'all. I need $1 million. Let's make this happen.
Yes.
You might need a little more than that.
A little more than $1 million. You're right.
A little bit more.
We'll start to go on me for Ear Doctor Village.
Don't forget to put the bars up on the weed store, because niggas will break into the weed store at night. So you gotta put the
shame for shame.
Motherfuckers will break into the weed store. Please lock it up tight.
All right. Well, yo, check this out. Let's go ahead and go to the next break. It's artist spotlight time once again. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Remix.
Let's go. All right. Big up everybody out there. What's good? Hope we all feeling good today. So we wanted to do a quick artist spotlight on a sister that's pretty bad. You're talking about a sister that survived and did her thing during the disco era, during the R&B era, and has classic songs. Who am I talking about? Evelyn Champagne King. Why not? Let's talk about Evelyn. So Evelyn Champagne King, born 1960. She's a singer, songwriter, record producer. She's best known for her disco single, Shame. No, I don't know what that said, but yeah. Shame, it came out. And then in 1977, during the height of the disco popularity, King had some other hits in the 1980s, like I'm in love. That one. Then she had Love Come Down. That was like in 1982. So she has some dope bangers. She's straight from from New York, New York. She was raised in Philly. She's one out of eight children. Pretty much she's been around entertainment for a majority of her life. Her uncle was in Porky and Bess, who also worked with Lena Horne at the Cotton Club. Her father sang backup for all groups at the Harlem Apollo Theater. And her mother was a manager. She managed a group called Quality Red. So she got discovered while working with her mom at the Philadelphia International Records as cleaning officers. She was in there cleaning and singing, and one of the A&Rs heard her and was like, yo, we need to train you and get you right. So she did that, and then she was eventually signed to a production deal at Life Galaxy Productions and a recording contract with RCA Records. She married a jazz guitar guy named Freddie Fox, not Bumpy Knuckles. Yes, his name is Freddie Fox. But yeah, she married him. She had a pretty hard time, rough life coming up. She lost 3 family members due to illness, and her daughter, who was born with brain damage and other problems, died 2 years later. So she's dealt with some things, but I must tell you, she has some banging songs. And not only that, the song Shame, it was one of the biggest songs in the UK and also over here, especially when it came to disco. On September 2004, the song Shame became one of the first records to be introduced into the Dance Music Hall of Fame at a ceremony held in New York Spirit Club. She has over 12 albums. She has compilation albums. And like I had said, she has some singles that go from disco, R&B, and soul, and all that. So that's Evelyn Champagne King, y'all. Let's play some Evelyn Champagne King for the weekend. And that's what it is. Let's take it back to the remix Morning Crew. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that. Evelyn Champagne King, Love Come Down. Did we know why she earned the nickname Champagne?
Oh yes. What happened is that her name sounded too old. And they was like, all right, we'll add champagne in the middle and it won't sound old. I mean, I don't get it, but
Sound
that's
like
what
the
happened.
reason of an old nigga. That sounds like some shit some old nigga would say.
Now, if you put champagne in the middle,
Make it sound young.
Patron, Evelyn Patron King.
Patron. That's what she would be named if she came out today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that spotlight, ear doctor. Obviously, we all of us of a certain age group are familiar with Evelyn Champagne King's music. And I didn't even realize that Shame was that old. I didn't realize that Shame was recorded in the 70s.
right? Right? She held it down for a minute. And I mean, those songs, disco era, that, like I said, is one of the top songs of disco. So big up to Evelyn Champagne King, and I catch y'all on the next break.
Brilliant.
Right on, right on, right on. Thank you very much, ear doctor.
Thank you.
So I know go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say in a few minutes I know we have Netfa Freeman coming up to talk with us about his recent article in Black Agenda Report regarding Biden and his killing the demand to defund police. But you also shared with us another story too, Kim. But go ahead. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, hold on. I don't know if I want to. I mean, I do want to talk about that. I mean, because first of all, it's a goofy story that I shared. It's kind of funny. Well, fuck it. You might as well pop it up there, Jared, since we already in it. Now, I know all of us will occasionally check out Breitbart.
It's a great source. It's a great, important source of news.
Oh shit! But I saw this and I had to laugh. Okay. The Breitbart headline reads, Texas governor orders buses to transport released immigrants to DC. Now, I'm sure Texas Governor Greg Abbott thought that was some sort of flex, right? Like, oh, I'm going to get Biden now. All these immigrants that have been detained here in Texas, we're about to put them on buses and ship them up to DC. That'll show them. Yep, that'll show them. That'll show them where all the kinfolk are, because we have a wonderful contingent of Latin Americans and other people from across the world right here in the district. So actually, Greg Abbott, I believe, is doing these people a favor by getting them out of hostile ass Texas and sending them here to the district area, the DC area, where DC is a sanctuary city. A lot of places in Maryland are sanctuary cities and counties. Virginia, I think, might have a couple of sanctuary counties and cities in the northern part of the city, part of the Commonwealth. So Greg Abbott thought that he was going to shit on Joe Biden by putting immigrants on buses to send them here to DC. And I tell him that the joke is actually on you, sir. These people are very much welcome in this region. And I hope they come. I hope they come by the boatloads, the busloads, bring their kinfolk, grandkids. I want to see everybody coming from Texas up here to DC. So anyway.
I just think this line right here is hilarious. To help local officials whose communities are being overwhelmed by hordes of illegal immigration who are being dropped off by the Biden administration. I just love how they frame this stuff. Biden dropped off a boatload of illegal immigrants in my backyard, and I'm going to send them up to him. I'll show him.
Show him. Yes, nigga, show us with all the empanadas that they can bear. Yeah, show us. Show me.
Langley Park welcomes you. Welcome. They'd be
Hyattsville welcomes you.
All this. Come on through.
Listen, people who are you don't even have to be a citizen in the city of Hyattsville to participate in elections. You just have to be a resident, right? Like, let me not, again, I'm only going to speak for my area. Let me speak for Prince George's County, but we are friendly here to immigrants. Anytime, like I think during the inauguration 2020, there had been talk that there were ICE patrols in the area, right? So all of us who were non-immigrants were vigilant and looking. Like, trust me, if I see ICE rolling up on any of my fucking neighbors, okay, I'm going to at minimum bear witness, and at maximum try my best to do something, to intercede or to help or to assist in some way. Like, we don't play that shit here. Like, people don't call ICE on their immigrant neighbors. So yes, if you got any people that are looking for a safe sanctuary, as safe, I guess, safer than Texas, then the DC area is definitely it. And at minimum, once you get here, you can get on that I-95 corridor. You can go everywhere, honey. You can go to New York. You can go everywhere. So anyway, it's just funny to me that conservatives especially believe that immigrants aren't welcome, that places do not welcome immigrants. And I'm here to tell you that is not the case.
Well, in what we have actually a number of stories that I'm sure some people would prefer we not see as related, but I think are clearly related to what we've just been talking about and what we will continue to be talking about this morning. But first of all, I see this happening in Minnesota, so let me shout out and rest in power to the late Mel Reeves, who I'm sure would have been all over this story had he not succumbed to COVID last year. And for those who might have thought that there was some sort of shift in this country's response to police and their violence, we're reminded of where we likely still are, which is no charges filed against an MPD officer who killed Amir Locke during a no-knock warrant. So, here's Keith Ellison, who every time I see Keith Ellison, the first two things I think of are one, thumbs down to get one, and then two, his classic exchange with Dhoruba bin Wahad, which if people never got to see or hear, please, we have to, the link might even be on imixwhatilike.org, but you got to see that. The other thing I think about when I think of Keith is that he's only in this position because he got run out by the Democratic Party for being seen as too radical. So here he is in Minnesota claiming, being seen by some as leading the victory as it regards George Floyd. But now I can't even remember who was killed where. Not George Floyd.
Yes, George Floyd.
Yeah, George Floyd.
Right.
I'm sorry. Right. I got it. I'm
so many.
Sorry about that. Right. Sorry about that.
Jared.
Right. Exactly. Right.
And not only
so
that,
anyway.
So George Floyd, obviously, Amir Locke, obviously, Daunte Wright in the same area, right outside of Minneapolis. But then the lesser known Winston Smith, who was assassinated by a squad of Minneapolis or Minnesota law enforcement officers who we still don't know who was responsible for the murder of Winston Smith. Fuck Keith Ellison, because not only is Keith Ellison a simp on this shit, but as the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota, he allowed Canadian company Enbridge to trespass illegally on sovereign indigenous lands in order to facilitate the construction of the Line 3 pipeline there, oil pipeline. And he has been confronted numerous times by indigenous activists like, what the fuck are you doing, dog? Because Enbridge was employing individual members of law enforcement agencies in Minnesota in order to harass and physically abuse the water protectors there who were trying to prevent the construction of this pipeline, which, by the way, is open and is flowing. Oh, by the way, it's already leaking. No shocker there. But this is the progressives and liberals are worthless. And I think the black ones is more worthless than the white ones. Like, what is Keith Ellison? Like, what is your function? Oh, never mind. I know what his function is. I answered my own question. Never mind. I know what his function is. Protect law enforcement at all times. And
yes, of course. Yes. One more, if I can, one more quick story, and then we'll get to Netfa here.
Can I mention something in connection with the announcement about no charges filed in the murder of Amir Locke? Here locally in Maryland, in Montgomery County, Maryland, there was a young black man, 21-year-old Ryan LaRue, who was experiencing a mental health crisis inside of his car while at a McDonald's. I want to say maybe this was Gaithersburg. This might have happened 4-ish months ago, late 2021, somewhere in there. I know I covered it on Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Well, it has been announced that there are no charges going to be filed against the officers that murdered Ryan LaRue. He was shot at numerous times. Only thing that the officers said that they saw was him raising his hands. Now, he had a gun in the car. But again, that's where I want to just say that merely possessing a gun is not a violent act. Having a gun in your reach is not a violent act. And there are lots of white Americans who routinely travel with guns, pistols, rifles, shotguns in their car, will be detained by law enforcement, and law enforcement manages to never fear for their life. So we want to send our ongoing condolences out to Ryan LaRue's family. I'm so sorry that there's not going to be any justice through the criminal injustice system against the murderers of their child. And yeah, it's not against the law to kill Black people in America still.
And I don't know anything about that case, but I would only want to add that to your point, even if the gun is possessed, quote unquote, illegally, that in and of itself is not a violent act. So I would just want to, in other words, we shot him because he had an illegally possessed gun in his trunk or some nonsense like that. In other words, yeah. So anyway, but just very quickly, because to your point about how Black children are considered and treated in this society, we have this story from the end of March. Chicago teachers clash after white teacher hangs Black doll from a cord in a classroom.
In Chicago?
In Chicago. 2 Chicago high school teachers are being investigated after arguing in front of students over a Black doll hanging from a cord in a classroom. A Black instructor at Whitney Young Magnet High School spoke out after taking notice of the African-American doll in a white history teacher's classroom. The 2 teachers got into a shouting match in front of the students. Part of the heated exchange was captured on video. You're effing stupid, the other teacher replied, and you're even more stupid in auto. You're wrong. I'm going to stand up here with you. You make me feel uncomfortable. I wonder which one said that. The teacher indicated that he found the doll in his room and wanted the students to see if someone would claim it. So you hang it up on a cord? Oh man, the teachers union released a statement condemning the encounter and potentially racist action from one of their teachers. Wow. Anyway, so again,
What do you do as a parent, right? I love to ask parents these questions. What do you do as a parent? If that was your child's teacher in classroom and you discovered, oh, the teacher hung a Black doll and it appeared to be hung in effigy or whatever. Like, how do you respond to that as a parent being told about this? Like, are you angry, or do you go talk to somebody?
I'm always careful with the question of how would I, or what would I, because I'm never entirely sure how I'm going to respond in a given moment. But based on past experience, we're just in general very aggressively involved parents. So I remember a couple of years ago in my daughter's middle school, one of the history teacher had one of these like fancy animated global maps of the world or whatever on a poster, and representing all the different people. And it had, I can't even remember. It had some racist, something was racist about what they did. I can't even remember now what was done. It was something about how they depicted indigenous and African people, and confronted her directly, and she took it down and apologized. That I haven't had anything as quite as egregious as that, but we have been, but I'm constantly sending emails, showing up at parent teacher conferences, constantly, I've rolled up on my daughter's theater teachers one year when I think it was racist that they didn't cast her in this thing, and I rolled up and interrupted their whole session and got a little loud with them, and basically it was like, who do you think you are? Like, this is 6th grade theater. You ain't on Broadway. You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you to be sitting and judge? Like, who do you think? Because you got your failed careers and you think you landed down here, that you would treat my child like, like,
ball, please.
That was and that's so I have to be, I try to moderate based on what my wife says is acceptable and what my children, because sometimes I don't want to make them feel worse because I am overly I don't know, and I can be misinterpreted in my approach at times, so I try to be very careful. But no, we are, so if something like that, I don't know, but my point is there would be some sort of direct immediate engagement. like, woo! Yeah, that's a big one right there. But I do think, real quick though, I do think that there is a correlation between these incidents and then to the point that you were making about how the police end up on the other end treating many Black young people and old people for that matter too. That there is, and I spoke to when that incident happened, I'll say this and then I will shut up. But I spoke to a counseling psychologist friend of mine, and he made this point that I'm not going to fully deliver properly, but his thing was they see white adults will often see Black and brown children projected as the adults that these whites hate as adults and treat the children in that way. So the point was they're not looking at your child as a 6th grader in that moment. They're looking at her as at least as a potential fully grown threat. And that's where a lot of the interaction plays out. And this is again where I'm most conflicted around how we, where we send our children to school and all of that. I am not inviting commentary on that. Again, thank you, everyone. But I'm just saying, so yeah, but aggressive, direct confrontation of some kind, engagement. Confrontation might sound a little too hostile, but engagement of some kind. Yeah. Anyway.
I would kill to have some footage of you 6'2", stomping up into the theater. This ain't Broadway. I don't know what y'all think y'all in here doing. How come my daughter ain't cast in this? That shit must have been glorious.
I felt great. There was a vibe of discomfort in the room, but not coming from me.
You
But
lucky
again,
you call the police on you, Jared. Shit, you can't. You know what happens when big Black men get loud,
and then they don't have to. And that's the other thing. They don't even have to call far away because there's often a cop car sitting right out front of these schools on a daily basis. So that's another. There's so many. Oh gosh, so many contradictions. I'm highly conflicted and struggling with it. But anyway, we do what we can do. Speaking of doing what we can do and doing the best that is done out here, we are fortunate enough to have a segment here coming up with the good brother Netford Freeman. I'm not entirely sure if we're supposed to get Ear Doctor back on first, but I'm assuming yes. So let's go ahead and get to the good brother Ear Doctor, bring him back up here, and then we'll have this discussion with Netford following. What's up, sir?
Everything is
How
good.
do you deal with do you have situations like that? Have you had a situation like that where the Ear Doctor had to leave Ear Doctor Village and roll up on somebody for how they might be educating his children?
Nah, my kids, they're at very Black schools. They pretty much never had to deal with. They never had a white teacher. Never any.
Oh wow!
And not just saying that that's a cause, but yeah, we don't never have no problem.
But it is.
It might be right.
For that, you get a Cosby Kid salute for that.
Yeah, and it's funny because knowing that my kids have never interacted with white kids or teachers or anything like that, so it's kind of wild. But
wow.
And as you were saying sometimes earlier, how you might not spend a lot of money and stuff. Sometimes if you do spend money, you put them in certain spaces where, like private schools, where they're going to be interacting with these other different cultures and stuff like that, and things like that might pop up. So I feel like let's give them the public education and let's give them the home education to make sure that they're ready for the world and have them in these honor classes, and that's what they all been doing.
Congratulations, Ear Doctor. That is wonderful. I'm very happy for your children that they have not had to experience racism in the classroom like Black children who are educated amongst majority white folks. I mean, that shit is real. Like I'm still a little scarred from
and Kim, even when they're not the majority numerically, they get their racisms in there. Like that's what I've noticed in our wonderful county public schools.
Listen, when I was in 5th grade and went to a Catholic school, I talked about how Bush ain't about shit, and I was quoting the KRS-One song at the time, and the teacher wanted to keep me back just because she didn't like the fact that I was talking about her favorite president. Yeah, so that's my Catholic school story. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to this quick break.
To the break. Okay, Remix morning show, Black Power Media. Let's go.
right. What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? Welcome out once again to the Remix Morning Show. We're going to do a real quick one. What I wanted to do is introduce y'all to a Black Power Media throwback. Which one am I going to talk about? You know what? I never talk about the doctor's office. So let me take you to a time when I sat down and talked to super producer Rick Rock, who was one of my partners back in the day. I used to have a rap group with. I was telling y'all I opened for Farside with him back in '93. So let's get to it real quick. If y'all ain't check it out, here it is.
Who would you say was one of your funnest people to work with, or you collab so great with? I'm gonna say E40 because I mean y'all got so much.
Because we about like 80 songs in or whatever. Like it's kind of stupid at this point, but so those is fun and shit. But outside of that, I'll say maybe Jay-Z, just because it was Jay-Z.
Right.
I couldn't believe it was happening.
Yeah.
It was surreal. He was intelligent. The whole atmosphere, all them, because we were at Baseline Studios. You know what I'm saying? And I came out there to do the song for Jay-Z. I had a song already on the reel that he wanted. When I got there, he didn't want it no more and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like this was like, nah.
Like that's just
I played a couple beats, he wasn't fucking with it.
Yeah.
So I had to just get on and get out right there or lose my opportunity. So those things made it like a trip. And then when I came with something, he just was.
Did you know that you can make a full-time income from YouTube without ever trying to grow your own channel? It's true.
That's what he be doing.
Then he went in and he recorded it. I'm on the, he was recording with me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hey, could you change that a little? And he's like, who does that? He said, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change it. But who does it? I remember him saying,
who tells Jay-Z?
Yeah, basically, like, you gonna tell, okay, I will listen to you. It's cute. It's cute. I like what you're doing. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and check that out. That's one of the doctor's office. You can go down and it was a very dope conversation with my brother out there in Cali, out to the Bay. So big up to all those out in Vallejo. Now let's take it back to the Remix Morning Show right here, right now. Let's go.
Right on, right on, right on.
All right.
Nice. Shout out to the doctor's office.
Yeah, no doubt. And come through this Sunday once again. I'm doing Kool G Rap and Rakim Street Knowledge Mix. So come through 8 p.m. on Sundays.
That's gonna be bananas.
Dope.
Right on. Thank you, Ear Doctor.
Yeah, I'll catch y'all later.
Hey, look, everybody, let's get to it. You know what it is. Let's get to this interview with Netfa Freeman of BAP and PACA and talk about our wonderful Biden in his stand against defund the police. Our wonderful president. All right, yes, indeed. Welcome back to Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media. Kim is welcome to stay on and join us. I didn't mean.
Yeah, I thought.
I was wondering, am I in this? Am I not in this?
Yeah.
I was hoping that's what I was expecting.
Hey, Netfa, how are you?
Hey, good to see you, Kim.
If you don't know who he is, you in the wrong place. I'm just leave it at that.
We know. We interviewed Kim on Voice with Vision.
No, I'm not talking about Kim. I'm talking about anyone out there. I didn't mean Kim. I'm talking about the world.
Know who I am.
I'm saying we don't everybody here knows who you are, so we don't need a more official so-called bio or introduction. The man needs no introduction, but you are representing Pan-African Community Action, Black Alliance for Peace, and you have a new piece in the equally legendary and great Black Agenda Report.com talking about Our boy Biden. So let me pull this up here real quick and encourage people, if they haven't seen it, to go check out the story or the commentary. Biden kills the demand for defund or to defund the police. If I can, I'll just start with what you wrote here. Yeah. Two things is I've highlighted here. Once again, a mass movement died at the hands of electoral politics. And as you start off, there is no better contemporary proof that reformism is poison to social justice than what happened to the demand for defund the police. This emerged as a slogan amidst the George Floyd uprisings. In many ways, Donald Trump's militarized police crackdown on mobilizations actually served to embolden them. So if we could I wanted to actually just start with where you started and ask you, what do you mean in terms of this point about mass movements dying at the hands of electoral politics? And then what exactly is going on here that you highlight in this piece?
Wow. Okay. So, the Democratic Party, because, the Democratic Party is just notorious for just hijacking. A lot of us might use the word appropriating leftist movements or leftist concerns. Liberals, they make it liberal. They take the liberal element and hijack a people's concern and try to use it as if it's going to be a platform for them to, usually when it's time for them to either hold on to electoral power or to get back into power after, in this case, it was Donald Trump. So they wanted to pretend. We saw during the George Floyd uprising, that was also coupled with the things that were happening around the pandemic, the economic crisis that was heightened because of the pandemic. And they made it seem like in the media, this is the Democratic Party wing of the duopoly. We need to be clear that this is one system and that these are two wings of the same bird, and that they always contend for power, but not because of any legitimate concern for the people or they're going to do anything. The Democratic Party wing of this bird that also seems to have a more more legitimacy in the eyes of the corporate media in some ways. And some corporate media, I guess it's the more, corporate media that we see on regular, that they will, and they do it all the time with it. And I guess, there's so many examples, but in this case, politically took the political rationale that came from defund the police. And they do with all kind of, y'all just talked about, I kind of was half paying attention. It was about the Amazon thing, where Biden comes on. But in this sense, they knew that people were talking about, the police are ill-equipped to handle things like mental illness or whatever, and we need social services and all that kind of stuff. So they're sort of pretending that they're acknowledging those things, while Trump is just, crude and just like he's going to send in the National Guard and do all these kind of things that also embolden the mobilizations, because when that happens, the people don't back down, they get bolder. They're like, nah, we want what we want, what we need, and so, but the Democratic Party not in power, you remember they was kneeling with the kente cloth and talking about George Floyd and all that kind of stuff, and acting like they're on the side of the people. And then the I have to characterize it as the not just the liberals, but those who are invested in the nonprofit industrial complex, the foundation money and all that kind of stuff, we're okay with that. We need a radical movement that's going to really transform the country if it's ever going to be amenable to the working class, black and brown working class people, just working class in general, right? But they will be content with just electing Democrats and then getting whatever little pieces of reforms that can also be snatched away, which is what we talking about right here, because some of them, some things never ever took place. And so that you'll see all of this, and the media helps it by making it all about Trump. And if we get rid of Trump, then things will be better, at least. And this is at least better. So then, and then I remember Kamala Harris getting on television while she was still a candidate, talking about the George Floyd stuff, saying stuff that really should be it's so elementary, and crude, or just fake, that we shouldn't be falling for it. But people at least wanted to get rid of Trump. So this is what, in that sense, this is what is meant by the liberalism poisoning social movements. We were in a time where the George Floyd uprisings were so acute that they had to whisk Donald Trump away into a bunker. They were scared, And we're talking about where we had an opportunity as a mass movement, because we're approaching mobilizations only. A lot of people approach mobilizations as the end all be all, and not really part of a longer protracted struggle to build a movement for power. So in that time, you have them. We had the people shaken because of what was happening with police, but also the pandemic was exacerbating. There were a lot of wildcat strikes, all this kind of stuff, things that actually gave momentum to the Amazon movement, right?
Mhm.
We had a chance to marry those things to make it even more broad-based, more interconnected in terms of the different aspects of the struggle, what we're fighting for, not just against police, which is really, police is just an extension of the capitalist settler colonial state, right? But we need to expose all of that. We could expose all of that. But the thing is, we have to, so anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to get off, but that has a lot of potential in it for us to really, can get power. Our enemies know that, and Democrats know their thing is to hijack that energy, to put in little media messaging that makes people think that what we're fighting for is not complete, transformation of society and for real people centered. I mean, like really socialist power, socialist revolution really was what we need. And they know that they have to circumvent or undermine any moves to that direction. And so they know the only way to do it is by, infecting our minds. Anything, the more right wing, like what the Republicans do, really can fuel us, because we know that's not in our best interest. It's clear that it is. So so anyway, that's basically, that explains what I meant. If you see here, now that the Biden administration is in power, and even during this, it's important to note that when they were campaigning, they never said, "Oh, we're going to defund the police."
Never.
Now, this is a cry that was out there. They're slick, but they certainly gave some sort of, like a bones to about, oh yeah, we need, better training. We do need social services and all that kind of stuff. And then Biden was saying we need to fund the police more so that they can be equipped, they can be better trained. They can have de-escalation and all that kind of stuff, right? We know they don't kill us because they're not properly trained. We're not being killed in mass because they're properly trained, or even because of bad policy, like no knock warrants or anything. We're being killed and mass incarcerated and brutalized because we're a threat to the neo-colonial capitalist paradigm. We're, in this order, a lot of people, the working class, people who have to sell their labor. And I'm not talking about whether you're employed or not. We don't want to think that the working class are only the people who are actually in the workforce, in the formal workforce. They're anybody who's subjected to having to sell our labor in any form or by any means because of the system. There's a surplus population according to where this system has gone, the unsustainability of the system, a surplus population that can only, in response to those who are in power, the only response they have is for us to be mass incarcerated or killed or whatever. That's the role of the police. They do it because that's their job, and we've heard that before. So anytime we start, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, okay.
No.
And anytime we start thinking and being deluded by their pronouncement that if we just have some reforms, police reforms, or even if we even did what the rationale of the proponents of defund the police were saying, well, the rationale for it is to shift money away from the police, take money and put it into social services. Even if that was happening, the police would still have their job. I mean, that would still be their job, and that actually the state under this system that is to facilitate or to, mediate, the issues and keep the system intact. Those social services are still an extension of the state. I mean, how many child protective services, type of stories can we, the role of that. So really we need radical transformation. We need revolution. And so what they're doing is undermining that. And now he comes in with all kind of, to get the audacity of naming the police reform bill after George Floyd.
Right.
It's named after George Floyd, And so this
is, as you point out, that he's going to allocate $30 billion more.
$30 billion.
$30 billion more.
Right. And so now, though, unfortunately, during the time right when Biden was in, we were some of us are advocating community control of the police, and we were getting more pushback about that from people who were saying, well, we need to abolish the police and defund the police, and we need to abolish the damn system. You know, I mean, it ain't just the police. We need to balance the system. What we're talking about is how do we get there? I mean, that's what. And so then, but now we were getting more pushback from the folks, you know, that were, you know, I guess they were advocate. They were anti community control of the police, or what, you know, or what they were saying that it meant. We would get more pushback from them than the Biden administration was getting for slapping it in the face and saying we don't need to defund the police. We need to fund the police. You know, as far as I could see, I wasn't seeing any like the media. So we're in a battle of ideas. We got to acknowledge that a pivotal aspect of the battle that we're in is winning the hearts and minds of our people, because it's the masses of the people that's going to take this thing through. Whenever we have a reform that defers to the people in power to give us something, to you know, even if you think that they're conceding to you because you've leveled a certain amount of influence or power, exerted something on them, we're abdicating what our historical mission is. And that's what it means that it's poison to social movements. Because if we start thinking that our goal is to get them to do something, to get them to defund, or to get them to, you know, do whatever, then we've lost the power, that we've lost sight that we don't want the people in power to do anything for us. We want power.
I love it. Go ahead, Kim. Yeah.
Well, because I mean, my question is, so how is it that we are able to achieve this absent electoral politics, for the simple fact that it's politicians who control the purse strings of these law enforcement agencies? And part of my mind went to the reformation of marijuana laws, and how that was a piecemeal, municipality by municipality, state by state thing that has still not been fully acknowledged by the federal government. Marijuana still remains illegal, but it is legal for medicinal and recreational purchases in 33 states. And that was a grassroots movement. Is defund the police going to have to become, and not to say that it's not already grassroots, but is it going to have to go that way? I'm not sure how we can defund the police via like referendum, you know what I'm saying, in the same way that marijuana was legalized. But are we still going to have to participate in the electoral process and put people in who agree with us, who would use their political power to actually cut police funding? Or is that a fantastical sort of wish that's not realistic?
Mm-hmm. No, I think so. There's a couple things here that I had to that I think is relevant to answering your question. First is we have to make a delineation and the distinction of who is we. Because when we start talking about power, we define power as the ability to envision, enact, implement, and protect, a program, a policy, a project, that's then the ability to protect the outcome. So right now, a reform and the distinction between being reforms that we might work for as part of a broad, longer-term, protracted strategic plan that's necessary for a revolution, and reformism. Those are two different things. So when we start talking about reformism, that's not wanting to change the system. That's just wanting to tweak it a little bit and get some win, and then you're okay with it. We don't want to defund the police. I mean, we might want to in the short term if that's what it is, but we really want we want control. We want the ability to enact and implement and protect the outcome, not for someone else to enact for us and implement for us, because that's why it can be rolled back all the time. That's what's happening. Any of these cities, it's happened in DC, any of these cities that most of them didn't do anything, but any of these cities that did take a little bit of money from their police and did anything, a lot of them are rolling it back. And then those who aren't rolling it back, it's in jeopardy, because it's, they're going to need more police as this system spirals out of control. So what we really have to understand, once we start understanding that we're in it, if we're really accepting that we're here for revolution, then we look at what our goals are, like how do we get power, and then how do we build a protracted struggle that includes strategies and tactics that include also reforms, like for example, reforms, but not reformism. For example, when we say community control of the police, at least just for PACA, and even most for all community control advocates police advocates that I know, It is a prelude to something. It's something that is to reform that in some way has a legal or statutory aspect to it that is meant to shift power. A lot of reforms, they don't shift power to the people. They just are something that keeps the power intact to the ruling class, right? So they're meant to shift power, and it's not that we stop there, right? There's also the community control aspect, and then I really want to get into what a role of a slogan is, because I know we're running out of time, and a demand is that we have to organize the community. I mean, it can't happen. We can't have no community control. Even if we won some statutory legislation that had community control, we wouldn't really be able to exercise it if the community is not organized to figure out what the duties and priorities and reshaping and organizing something to enforce public safety as the people envision it, a people-centered vision of what public safety means for the people, and emerging out of the struggles of the people, which means that we're going to have people's assemblies and community councils and all that. We want to render the infrastructure that the state has for us. We want to render it irrelevant to us. We want to be able to look at them and say, we don't need your MPD to come in here. We got this. We know you can put us on TV and the killing and the violence and all that. We want that. Those are legitimate concerns, but we got it. We don't need you.
But how do we even convince all of our people that more police is not the solution to the problems in the community? I see it all the time, especially on TV. When there's some shit happening, violent crime wise, it's always some elders usually in the community talk about, we need more police. There's not enough police out here. How come we ain't got no police out here? How can we convince members of our own community that more policing is absolutely not the answer? Because it doesn't seem that we're all united behind that.
No, and it has to do with us organizing. I mean, one, we got to organize the alternative. We got to do mass political education in our communities. Our people are not killing each other. We're not killing each other because we're inferior. I mean, if we think that if we start with the premise that we know we're not inferior and it's not natural for us to kill each other, then we have to then assume that we can be reached, that we got to be out here in mass and organization and reaching our people and creating and doing. Some people might not be reached, and we might have to, we have a formation in the community that's going to keep that in check by force. I mean, that's how they keep us in check. I mean, it's cold-blooded. We got to think about that. But once we can create some order on ourselves as the organized revolutionaries of community, then the elders and all those who think we need police will see an alternative. And we actually, we start with the political education or the rationale of community control, and community control is a slogan. Let's get to the slogan thing before I run out of time, because a slogan or a demand slogan, we got to be careful that it's not co-optable and that it's not something we're demanding for the powers that be to do for us. It's not we're not imploring it, which is a lot of what these slogans do. They have to be something that galvanizes the people and reflects our conditions and helps the people. It's something they got to be able to repeat and embrace, right? So that's why we say community control of the police. But and when we say community control of the police, just taking community control itself can be applied to anything else, and it's going to radicalize it. Community control over land, community control over health.
But are you saying, so when you say that, as the title of your piece reads, Biden kills the demand for defund the police, are you saying that are you describing killing it as in terms of what it means to defund the police? And
no,
then are you
killing it as in terms of it's, I mean, I'm sorry, this is going to sound cold-blooded. It's dead. It ain't going nowhere. He killed it. I shortened as a, I mean, and you ain't I mean, right now, if you look at the media landscape and how things are being bombarded, anyone who's talking about that, it's easy for them to push back with this crime narrative that's going on. It might be right or wrong. People will say, well, crime is going up, and we could say that the statistics are that it's not really going up. Even if it was, it could be, because I mean, the dire situation in terms of the economy, it creates frustration, despair, and all that. But the root causes of it aren't addressed. They want to keep us sidelined about what it is, and that the police solve that or whatever. But right now, my point is that as a slogan can go nowhere, anymore. So and that anything that's around self-determination and decolonization, which is will always be there because until we get it, until we win it, we can always.
So part of what you were also saying, if I read you correctly and I'm hearing you correctly, is that defund the police as a slogan in and of itself was already short-sighted, was already a step away from community control and all of that. Mm-hmm.
It was short-sighted from the beginning because it didn't lend itself. It's imploring who's going. It leaves out the we. That's what I wanted to get at. Who is the we? It doesn't talk about who's going to do the implementation and the enactment of it. I mean, it does. It assumes that it's going to be the powers that be. That's the only thing. That's the only who can do it. We don't have power to do that statutorily as a people. So it's
in fact, you say here, lost in the description is the who that would enact, implement, and protect such a reallocation that is diametrically opposed to the neoliberal logic of the society and the settler colonial oligarchy. So so without replacing that oligarchy and that colonial relationship, who's gonna redistribute the funds and to where to do what?
Right. And then how do we protect the outcome of it? We can't protect that. They're reversing it now in a lot of places. He just gave $30 billion to the police. And Mayor Bowser's talking about expanding because they're not they've had a 500 they lost 500 police over the time because at least the movement at the time was helping demoralize folks, especially young Black folks, to joining the ranks of the police. Now they're trying to beef that back up. They're on an immediate assault in DC to beef it up with Black women. I mean, they coming after. The psyops is really interesting here, and we got to be aware of the psychological game that they play. We have to be just as ready. We can't just be running around here and screaming for stuff. We got to talk about organization. We got to be sophisticated in how we gain, our people. We got to be able to counter their stuff, and we have to see it though as their desperation. Comrade Onyesanwu Chetoye in the AAPRP Parenthood Communists wrote an excellent piece on the weaponization of empathy, imperialism's weaponization of empathy. But anyway, in it, and we interviewed her, she makes an excellent point that what's happening is not a sign of their strength and their invincibility. It's a sign of their desperation. They desperate right now. And I think y'all talked about, I know you talked about, they're in a two-sided thing when it comes to information. And internationally and domestically, they are bombarding us with propaganda about, needing the crime and all that. Also about, Putin is the devil, blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, they're eliminating alternative voices and sources of information. They want their single message because their message is vulnerable. It's weak. It can't stand up to the minimum amount of scrutiny. I mean, even if we put the more police, against that argument, get our people talking about it, because this is also an answer to your question, Kim. We got to convene political education, mass assemblies, and talk about these things. Let the old people speak about why we need police and debate about it honestly. That could not stand the minimum amount of scrutiny because they even know the police come after something happens. That's and right. A lot of times they don't help. They might kill us. Some of our old people can, or anybody can attest to a loved one who was acting out because of something, and you called the police because you didn't know what else to do, and they end up killing them. That ain't what you meant to happen, right? But if we know that we can get a handle on the underlying causes of these things as a community, as a people, and we can organize ourselves to have some alternative, it might not have immediate effects, but what's happening now is just genocide, And so anyway, but they because of what's happening now is so dire, it leaves the enemy in a vulnerable position because they can't justify it. In spite of we could make the mistake, and I do this sometime. I see them bombarding us with such information. I sometimes forget and assume that everybody's believing it. I know I don't, but I think that it's out there and our people are vulnerable. But his approval rating's still dropping. Everybody ain't believing it, and they don't want us to know everybody ain't believing it. They are vulnerable. And we need to be able to, beef this up and organize in every means possible. And it also and I want to the point about electoral politics, I'm not one that abstains from electoral. And I think people need to be clear that we need to use every means possible. And in fact, one of the aspects around voting that we don't, the election process that we don't use enough is not voting for candidates, but voting for referendums and ballot initiatives. And that's what we're talking about in terms of community control of the police. We have people, when we first were doing this, and we need to get back on track, PACA, because the pandemic set us back. We have people running for city council. Can we, help you with CCOP and what we and we'll introduce it. We don't need you to do that. Nope. That's all right. We'll go to ballot initiative for you. But this is easier. But then you rob us of us being able to go out and engage the people with the petitions and all that kind of stuff. We need to be out there with the people. We have to organize the people. It's not just about winning some statutory thing like defund the police might be. We got to organize.
Just quickly, in the last few minutes we have, and folks, because we hit the 250 in the live today, we're going to get a special closeout mix from the Ear Doctor. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, after that, come back after you take a quick break this morning and join us at 11 o'clock with more NETFRA. As we look at some of the media, I think it's going to be an interesting review of the media coverage of this topic and why the branding issue and what you've written is so important. But I highlighted a couple comments as you were talking that we can just quickly show, and you can respond in the last few minutes if you like. Electorally here in the U.S. seems impossible because if anyone runs on that, Dems partner with Republicans to make it sound radical and scary. Yep, more effective evil. Glenn Ford said about the Democratic Party. Yeah, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Just a reminder, shout out to Glenn Ford.
I mean, just real quick. I mean, so you're talking about stuff specific. I mean, well, obviously you're talking about nationwide and globally, but here in the district, I mean, I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing. The proposal of adding, are they asking for 30 million more Metropolitan Police to their budget? They already operate on a $500 million budget, and just the audacity for the mayor and the police chief to ask for $20,000 signing bonuses, for reimbursed tuition for new officers, for new recruits, for take-home cars. I'm like, people who work for social services deserve all these sort of benefits. Why y'all want to make all of these special accommodations, these Cadillac benefits, as it were, for the police only? Like, how can we convince?
They have to. I mean, we got to understand this system is in crisis. The only way they're going to keep it together is because the only other thing to do is they can give the people what they need, which is actually not what, that's not what neoliberal capitalism does, or they can spiral complete out. It's following the same logic as like climate control and expecting a different, they don't think that they live on the same planet as the rest of us, but they need the police to keep, I mean, the more intense, it's the dialectic of the logic between the irreconcilability of the neoliberal persistence to be in power and the working class, that needs to survive. It's the dialectic of it. And so it's a reconcilability in this system of the working class and the ruling class. And the system and the government is just there to mediate the reconcilable differences, but to also serve the purpose of the classes in power. And so right now we got it. That's why our fight got to be for power. They're going to keep doing that. I mean, when we see these things, a lot of people, we don't know that they're doing it because they ain't got no choice. They trying to hold on, and we're in a position of advantage here. We just don't, as a mass, we don't really know it.
When I just this comment again from Ricky, where the question is, where federal funds for federal officers are coming from. I'm reading this Stephanie Kelton book on modern monetary theory, and as she points out, it's all, to summarize, nonsense. And when they want money to fund, for instance, the police in war, they have it's click, 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 and there it is.
You Crane?
I don't even know what the latest number is.
It's an obscene amount. It's in the billions easily.
But 30 billion for the police, real quick. 2 trillion in 20 years in Afghanistan. I mean, it's whatever.
While
whatever.
They end everything else, they end the pandemic stuff, and and he's going to extend the moratorium. The moratorium on student debt, not wipe out student debt, like just extend it because there was some protest around it when the deadline comes, not because they don't have no intention of doing that. The system is so fragile.
Yeah, I love that. I love that point. Again, I always like to think, when I was on that aircraft carrier, my job was to man a 50 cal machine gun to shoot at all of the low technological threats that highly technological ship could not withstand. Everything is more vulnerable than people think.
Yes.
And, that's why I don't like that mysticism about Illuminati and conspiracies and all that stuff. They are just more well organized, but they are not some, again, mystical superpower that can't.
And a proof is when all the shows that are on the podcast and whatnot, how they're silencing these things that don't really have any big mass reach, but they're still a threat enough for them to stop it. They're bombarding us left and right. We can't get anything that we can believe in, but for them still, they have the power to do that, but still they think these small things are a threat. It reminds me of what Kwame Ture used to say. I've heard him say it, but somebody else probably said it. One truth can smash 1,000 lies. That's why this stuff is a threat. You can,
and that's why we're not the silent majority. We're the silenced majority,
right?
And that's what they're trying to do.
And they never know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
It was just the one. They never know when a certain there's a certain chemistry of things that can happen that can galvanize the masses. And so when we're prepared as revolutionaries in an organizational way, and the opportunity comes, that's when success is when preparation meets opportunity. They never know when that mix is going to happen. And we can also, sometimes we're dire and we think, oh, it's going to be such a long time before we can see a revolution. Well, it takes a lot of preparation, but we never know when the opportunities will kick off. We got to be prepared. So when anyway.
Hey, Netfa, thank you for joining us and helping us close out our week here at the Remix. I know, you and I will be back at 11 o'clock, so people come right back, and I'll be back again tomorrow morning talking Africana studies and Afrocentricity. Kim, another great week. Thank you very much on the Remix. And what you got coming tomorrow on Burn It Down?
I don't know, something, but I just what the main thing that I want to make an announcement about Monday, we are having a Fire Fam Disability Support Group chat. Okay, this is the first time I'm doing this. I am not certain about what this is going to look like or sound like, but just FYI, if you want to participate, it's going to be a Zoom chat. It is not going to be published nor broadcast. You can keep your cameras off. It's cool. If you just want to come and listen, that's okay. Also, if you're interested in doing this, this is Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Fire Fam Disability Support Group. All of our patrons are going to get the link today. And if you're not a patron and you still want to participate, hit me up on Twitter at Burn It Down KB or at Kim Brown Live, and I can DM you the link. But I want us to start having conversations even amongst ourselves about disability and the ways that system of oppression can compound just living and surviving your own disability. And even if you are not a disabled person, if you are disabled adjacent, you have a disabled partner, parent or child, we welcome you. So hit me up. I will send you the Zoom link. That is Monday, April 11th, 5 p.m. Eastern.
Right on. Thank you very much. And hey, let's get our reward. We hit 250 in the live, and we got the ear doctor coming back with our special treat. What's up? Let's get it.
Don't know what it is, but it's a hit from my youthful days. As I go my way, I don't care what people say. I'm in love with a man nearly twice my age. Girls, you look so sharp. Anytime you pass in the boom boom shine. It's true.
What's the girl's crazy about? Let's go. Come on.
Girl, you touch my heart. Anytime you pass in your boom boom shine.
I got it. Wide out. Run this. I miss a cat away, them want to ram it up. And all the dog got style and them a touch it up. From over Steromas, on the way they pick it up. And we out of here for today. Catch y'all next time. This is the Remix Morning Show. Peace.